Okay, so you have three different kind of sectors, if you will, within the airline industry. Hello, ladies. Welcome to my home here in Austin, Texas. I am making this video exclusively for women that are over 50 and would like to come into the airline industry as flight attendants for the first time in their lives. Of course, if you've been a flight attendant before and you've been on the ground for a while, maybe this will be helpful as well. I'm not sure. But I wanted to address a few things that people have actually been writing me about that, there's probably quite a few of you that have questions and you want the perspective of a person that's over 50 that is in this industry. First of all, I can tell you it is not for the weak, okay? And I'm not talking about strength. I'm talking about mentally. Keep in mind, this isn't the glamorous, I'm going to come up and down the aisle and serve you Coke. This is real dealing with customers and safety issues, and being a part of the direction of the FAA as well as your company. And you've got a lot of rules to abide by. And so if you're not really prepared for that, if you're kind of like have had these jobs that are kind of fly by night and you've never had rules to live by, this may not be the job for you, because you do have to adhere to quite a few federal aviation regulations when you're a flight attendant. So right up front, I want you to keep that in mind. This is a very structured job in some ways, but it's also 90% a lot of fun and a joy. So please don't let what I said before scare you. It's just the reality of the job. So let me go to my notes here and answer some questions for you. Let's see. How do I know what airline is right for me? Okay. Well, there's a few different ways to look at this, okay? It's not necessarily about the airline. Well, let me take that back. It is about the airline, but it's the type of airline, okay? So you have three different kind of sectors, if you will, within the airline industry as far as commercial passengers, okay? You have regionals, which are like the SkyWest, Compass, Envoy. Okay, those take people from smaller markets to smaller markets. Think Syracuse to Buffalo. Okay, you don't want to drive it, but you want to fly it, and there's a smaller plane that's available, and you're there. Then you have what you call low-cost carriers or mainline carriers. These are your Spirit, JetBlue, Frontier, Alaska, and so forth. Mainline carriers mean basically they're 90% of the time plus the Caribbean, flying, domestically, okay, in the Caribbean. Probably said that wrong, but whatever. Anyway, so they're flying domestically, but it also includes the Caribbean. There we go. And then you have your major carriers, which are worldwide. That's your American Airlines, Delta, and United. Okay, so here's the big difference. With the regionals, you're flying smaller planes. They go from point A to point B, and there might be maybe 2 or 3 different types that they fly. I myself love the Embraer. If you want to look up these aircrafts, I would do some research on the Embraer 175 and the Embraer 190. I would also do a little bit of homework on the CRJs. I don't know those at all, but I do know carriers that are consistently using those aircraft, so good idea to look into those. The mainline carriers are mainly flying Airbus, with the exception of Southwest. Southwest only flies the Boeing 737. The other carriers such as JetBlue, Spirit, Frontier, Alaska, they are, again, flying Airbus. Now, there's a few different variances in the Airbus. There's the 319, the 320, and the 321. And it's the difference really is really not much at all. It's just dependent upon how many people can be loaded in said starship. Okay, so the 319 might hold 150 people and the 321 might hold 200. Okay, and it varies by airline because of the seat design and how many seats they can fit in the aircraft based on televisions, TV trays and so tables, tray tables. Oh my God, did I say TV trays? What's wrong with me? Anyway. So prior, I was saying that there's a lot of rules that we as flight attendants must abide by, okay? Now, at the same time, think of how the passengers view the flight attendant. We are safety professionals, yes, but I would venture a guess that 9 times out of 10, the passengers are viewing us as kind of like the airplane police, if you will. Not that that's a bad thing, but they know don't get in trouble with a flight attendant because you might not fly again. You see what I'm saying? So if you want to become a flight attendant, there's a couple things you need to have in your wheelhouse, personality-wise. You must be able to be fun and friendly and conscious of the needs of the passenger, right? But you must also be able to put your game face on when stuff goes down. You know what I mean? You got an irate passenger, you got a drunk passenger, you've got a passenger that will not comply because they're constantly doing this or that and annoying other passengers and this kind of thing. So, that being said, you can't be mousy. You can't have a mousy personality. You must be able to roll with the punches, and whatever happens, you must be able to react immediately and with good common sense. And these are the kinds of things that shine in interviews as well. So if you're, at the point where you're going to go interview, keep those things in mind. Yes, they want to see that you are friendly and wonderful, and when the customers see you, you scream JetBlue or you scream American Airlines or whatever they're looking for in your character, okay? But they always almost, no, I'm saying it wrong. They should always be able to see that authoritative figure behind that. So, how do they see that? Walk with confidence and walk with purpose. Just like you see flight attendants walking through the terminal, and I'm not saying every flight attendant walks with purpose and with confidence, because after about 20 years, you just, sometimes you don't care anymore. But for those of us that love our jobs, and for those of us that have a great respect for our position, we do walk with confidence and with purpose through the airport, as you will see when you look around, right? So that kind of thing needs to be exuded at an interview, and practice exuding that while you're waiting to interview for a certain airline. Which brings me to another question that I had. Let's see. Oh, and so how do I know what airline is right for me? Well, it's kind of a personal call, if you will. If you see, or you've flown on, you've flown on American Airlines your whole life, and you never felt like, the flight attendants were really, really happy there. or you went on Alaska Airlines and you didn't like how the seats were, but you went on JetBlue and you saw how happy everyone is and they gave you free Wi-Fi, and man, I would love to work there. I think that's really how you figure it out, right? It's based on your own experience, based on the things that people may tell you about their airline. It's great to get into these Facebook forums on Facebook, because people talk about the culture at their airline and how happy or not happy they are and why. And you really have to just do the research. You also need to narrow it down by where you want to go, right? Because a big part of this job is about the experiences you have on layovers. And so if you are happy going to Nebraska and Seattle and, New York City every once in a while, then so be it. But if you want to go to Russia and China and, I don't know, Hawaii, and you'd love to go to Spain, maybe you better be applying at the majors then and keep at it. Okay, so think about, your home life. Think about the time that's going to be invested. Regional carriers don't really tend to have a long reserve time, and neither do mainline carriers, but the majors do. Some of them, it's, 10 years on reserve. And it also depends on where you're based. But then the mainline carriers might have a year or two reserve, and then you're never on reserve again. And the same thing with the regionals. And maybe some of the regional folks, I've never flown on a regional myself, or worked as a flight attendant on a regional. So perhaps some of those regional flight attendants can chime in here in the comments and give a broader description on what that means, or what that looks like to them rather, when they're on reserve. If you also have questions about where you want to work based on the base, that's another factor that is going to play into your decision, and it should. If you live in Miami or you live in Fort Lauderdale, you've got a vast majority of major airlines and mainline airlines that you could work for and not be far from home. Now, granted, no matter where you go, you could be put at a base very far from home for the first year, and you have to know that going in. You have to know that it's also only temporary, and know what you're getting yourself into, because here's the cut and dry of being a flight attendant. You have to be flexible, be ready, and willing to work anywhere, anytime. Which brings me to another question I had about, taking time off, spending time with family. How do you make it work? Well, I would say most of us that are over 50, our kids are already grown, and we have a great advantage in this regard because we don't have anyone depending on us, maybe except for our husbands. And of course, my husband, he doesn't necessarily love it when I'm gone, but it does give us time to kind of recharge. And when I come home, I just love spending time with him. I love to be home, and it's wonderful. So at the same time, sure, I would love it if I could be spend more time at home, but right now I just can't. There comes a time in your career, however, where basically you're going to call the shots. You're going to make your own schedule, and you'll be home every weekend, just like a 9 to 5. But here's the other thing. If your kids are grown, right, and you are traveling, and your husband's also retired, then he can basically go pretty much anywhere with you. So it's a win-win. So I would say over 50, you've got a huge advantage. You do not have to be home all the time with people relying on you. Of course, you may have a husband at home, and Hopefully he's an understanding husband that will support you like mine does and love you no matter what, and say, hey, if this is what you love to do as far as your work life, then please, go do it. I will support you and I will be here, and I can't wait until your schedule changes so we can go places together. So think about that. Oh, the other thing, while I'm on the whole age thing, right, and starting this career at this age, little known fact, here's another reason why being over 50 is a great thing. When you go to training, seniority is typically, not at all airlines, but typically based on age. And I think that's very smart of the airlines, because why? You're going to leave the airline a lot sooner than the 22-year-old that's also in the same class, right? Just by default, you're going to leave before they are. So the airline does you a favor by giving you that seniority, because you're going to be kind of out the door before they are, right? And that's a really great thing. I'm going to be 53 tomorrow, actually, and I plan on giving my career at least 17 more years. I'm going to retire at 70. Pretty certain of that. I'm very healthy. I'm very active. I love what I do. There's no reason for me to retire before 70. There's a very famous flight attendant. Her name is Betty Nash. She is with American Airlines based at DFW. And I believe she's 85 or better this year, which is amazing. I mean, maybe I can work until I'm 85. Who knows? I mean, if you've got the chutzpah, then go for it, right? All right. Let's see. Let's talk about those holidays and family time together, because that's so important. But here's what we do in the airline industry. We create our own holidays. Typically, the first couple of years, you're not going to get your birthday off. You're not going to get Labor Day off. You're not going to have Halloween off. You're not going to have Thanksgiving off. And you are certainly not going to have Christmas and New Year's off, okay? So you have to pick a day to celebrate that. So, c'est la vie, right? So Christmas this year is going to be on the 23rd, everybody, okay? Because mom's a flight attendant, and that's when it's going to happen. And that's what you do. It's simple. You just have to get everybody in on, the game plan and do this thing on the 23rd. It's still going to feel like Christmas. And the beautiful thing, we get to take people to our loved ones on Christmas Day. It's actually really nice sometimes to fly on Christmas, because people are going to see people they haven't seen in a long time. Everyone's happy. There's no problems. There's literally no problems, unless, God forbid, on Christmas Eve, everything is delayed and JFK is snowed in, and it affects everybody everywhere, because if two planes are stuck, then they can't get to, Florida, and Florida doesn't have those planes, and they can't fly the Florida people over to Ohio, and this kind of thing. So it messes everything up. Delays are pretty easy to understand. I mean, it's a domino effect, right? When 10 planes are late, then the rest of the day is just screwed up, and that's how it goes. And this is also what I mean about rolling with the punches. You just do what you got to do, and pray to God that the customers are not upset, and that you can find some small way to make their day wonderful again. And you do that on the plane, because God knows the airline relies on us as a last-ditch effort to get these people happy before they get off the plane. And you better be able to do it. Because we don't want mad passengers. Because if we have mad passengers, they don't come back. Okay? And there goes your profit sharing. You don't want that. Let's see. I was telling you about how you would go about picking an airline, right? Okay. So now you narrow it down to, I wouldn't do more than 3 or 4 airlines that you're really absolutely interested in finding out more about, okay? Because we women over 50 are not about applying to every company we see. I think most of us are smart enough and savvy enough to do the research on the company and figure out maybe 3 or 4 that we'd really like to work for. I would not apply at 8 or 9 or 10 airlines. Find the top 4 that you really want to work for and focus on them. Make sure that your letter of application reflects the mission statement and the vision of the company, okay? When you're applying to these companies, you need to be doing your homework. You need to incorporate mission statements and or vision statements from the company into your cover letter and or resume. Actually, and not and or, and both, okay? Let's take, for example, JetBlue has a mission statement that includes safety, caring, passion, fun, and I can't remember the 5th one. Oh my gosh, my friends are gonna be so mad at me. I can't remember the 5th one. But anyway, you know, and then you have like American Airlines. I think they just changed it within the year to be the greatest airline in the world, right? CEO's trying to bring that company back to literally be the greatest airline in the world. So you need to do your research. You need to pay attention to these buzzwords and put them in your cover letter, put them in your resume. Make sure that customer service and safety are inside the words safety, especially. Safety is always number 1 in an airline. It's a safety profession. If you don't include those words in your resume and your cover letter, safety professional, customer service oriented, customer service facing, then get them in there because that's what they're looking for. If you've been a lifeguard, if you've been in the Army, if you've worked, I used to work at Allergan, the headquarters of Allergan where they make Botox. That was a safe campus. No one was getting past the reception desk, okay? It was a secure and safe campus. So if you've worked in an industry like that, where everything is shut up like a tight drum and no one's getting past the receptionist, then that is a secure area, like a secure airport would be, right? So make sure you incorporate that. So I truly hope that this little talk I've had with you today has been helpful. I want you to know that I absolutely love my career and I'm very, very passionate about my career in the airline industry. It is ever changing. There is no 2 days the same. And it is an absolutely exciting career, especially for those who are looking for a new change in career and a retirement job. This is definitely something I would highly recommend to any of you over 50. Please, if you have any comments, questions, please put them below. Please subscribe to the channel. This is fairly new. I am absolutely new at doing YouTube channels, so I hope you'll subscribe, stick around, tell your other friends over 50 that are interested in being a flight attendant to tune in, and I'll see you next time. And remember, Mama loves you.